Alright, so what you need to, let's start off with the left hand side. Just leave it there. Let's start off on the left hand side. So anything on the left hand side is mentioned in multiple choice and short answer. Okay, so if you want to, left hand column, if you want to put like a bubble or next to it or circle it, most of that is repeated more than once in the exam. Okay, so more than once. So you can definitely know that the left hand side will come up more than once. Okay, or at least once. Okay. When we're looking at waves diagram, you need to know a specific wave diagram. So the crest, trough, wavelength, amplitude. You need to know the specific names, but you also need to work out answers from a wave diagram. So you might need to work out the height of a crest. You might need to work out the wavelength, and so on. Okay, or number. You might need to know number of peaks and troughs. You might need to calculate the frequency. It is something along those lines. The next one, optical fibers. Optical fibers, you need to know use of optical fibers. You also need to know what is cladding and what is total internal reflection. Okay, so what is cladding for optical fibers and what is total internal reflection? To summarize Volta and Galvani, let's look at what each of them have theorized or hypothesized in their time during that period of science. So what did each of them come up with in science? So basically just differentiating between the two. Your next one is safety with electricity. So this one will come up more than once. Safety electricity might got to do with what is the different components with safety. So what is insulation? What is an earth wire? Why do we have an active and a neutral? Why do we have fuses? Why do we have circuit breakers? It can be anything to do with safety. Okay? And let me say, it comes up more than once, that one. Okay? I remember that one vividly when I'm going through it. So, why do we have an earth? Why do we have
No, the SRP stuff that was in there, the tubs of stuff.
I've just put them in one of those crates, miss.
Over there?
So, in terms of safety of electricity, yeah, so what is earth, what is the insulation, why do we insulate, and so on. Snell's law. I have a mathematical question, but I also have what is refraction, what is reflection. So you would need to know the difference between refraction, you'd need to know the difference between reflection, okay? Can I also mention that when you do Snell's law, that it might ask you along the lines of what is the speed of a wave before and after. Okay, so what is the speed of a wave before and after? Okay, so that's looking at wavelength and N2, N1. Okay, so looking at the biggest version of Snell's law's formula. Okay, so I would write down that formula if you didn't know that formula. Power. So you might need to work out power of an appliance. Okay, so you might need to know looking at the electricity and power energy formulas at the top. P equals VI, or energy equals VIT, or R, or Ohm's law, R equals V over I. Okay, so you need to know those formulas there. So if you want to write them down, I'll give you some time. The three at the top where it says electric power and energy. Okay, so that's what I've got as power there. Now, with velocity, there is a time where you need to know what velocity is, but you also need to know how to work out velocity. Okay, so there is a mathematical component with velocity. And looking at vectors, you need to know how to make a diagram with vectors and then gather data from that. So for vectors, it might give you 15 meters east and a 20 north, and you need to combine those two to work out the final vector. Okay, so vectors, you need to know how to use vectors in physics, but you'll also need to know how to extract data from vectors. So they might give you two vectors and they might say, what is the net vector? Okay, alright, does that make sense? Or they might give you the net vector, one of the vectors, and then they'll find the missing vector. Okay. There are questions, mathematical questions, which will use vectors, and some people might use vectors to work out the answer, but you don't need to. Yep. No, horizontal and vertical component, no.
That's something there?
No.
Okay, good.
No. But if they have a tug of war and there's, let's say, 15 meters east and 25 meters west, what is the final vector? Some people might need to use a diagram to work it out, some people don't. That's what I'm getting at with vectors, okay? Your next one is displacement. So you do need to know the definition of displacement. That doesn't mean it's going to give you a mark, but if you don't know what displacement is, you're going to find it hard in the exam because it gets mentioned more than once. Okay? Okay, so there's going to be a trick question which says, what is the displacement? And most people would say distance. Okay, so you need to remember what displacement is. Impulse is another equation question. Okay, so if you want to write down what the impulse equation is, that will help. So there is the impulse, and you can write the momentum one down if you'd like to. There is a two-part question. I can't remember if one of them was momentum or was it just impulse. But for your safety, it's probably good to remember momentum. Alright, so the next one is evolution of a star. So you need to know how a star is born, basically. So you want to write life cycle. If you look up, I think in one of your books it says life cycle of a star. Just look that up. It's one of those workbooks I gave you.
You have one that's like
flowchart?
Yeah, flowchart.
Yep.
Is that what we need to do?
Yep. If you can recall that flowchart, you'll wink wink see something very similar. Okay. The next one, Hubble, is also a multiple choice question. So that's the only one that's... Oh, so Hubble and nuclear radiation and reaction is multiple choice as well. Okay, so... But it gets mentioned again. So not just once. It gets mentioned again. Okay? So if I say nuclear radiation reaction, I guarantee you will see it again. Okay? So I'm telling you now that nuclear radiation reaction is at least 5 to 6 marks in your total exam. So it gets mentioned once in the multiple choice, 1 mark, and then there's 4 to 5 marks in the short answer. Yes, so you might be given a diagram and say which one's beta, alpha, gamma. You might be given which one is stopped by paper, which one's stopped by lead, or they might say which one is unaffected by electric field or magnetic field. Okay, so I might drop the hint there. There is a diagram question associated with that. Okay, for nuclear radiation or reaction. So, wave equation. is the mathematical formula, which is V equals F lambda. You really do need to know that equation. So that one there, I talked about in term 1. All right.
If I were to give it to you, the practice paper on Friday, could you, or Thursday, could you get it by Monday?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right, graphing. Can I write down a few things? So what do you need? You need a pencil for the exam. You need a title. You need to label your X and Y axis. And you also need to make sure that you use the whole graph, so scale. So let's go through it again. Pencil, title, label with the X and Y axis. You need to make sure you use the whole graph, so scale. And then I'm not going to write this down, but you need to follow the instructions. So it says line graph, or if it says line of best fit, you follow those instructions, okay? Five out of 65, that should be a good 5 marker, guaranteed. So you can pretty much say you should be getting at least 7% or 8% in your exam, okay? So there's a guaranteed 7 or 8% there. Acceleration is an equation as well. So you need to know the definition. And you need to know the equation. Now remember that 30% of your exam is about moving about. There's a more of a weighting with the moving about and cosmic engine, the third and fourth topic in physics, okay? So acceleration might be a 4 to 5 marker, okay? I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not a 2 marker, it's not a 1 marker, okay?
So we have to know, like, a table you gave us in every kind of way how to find acceleration.
Yep. Speed zones. That gets brought up once for 3 to 4 marks, but it also gets brought up several times in your moving about. So it might say, discuss the reason for 40 kilometer speed zones. Can I tell you that this will be minimum half a page response? So this is probably one of your essay questions, okay? Not probably, it is. Okay? So this is your essay style question. Now, can I mention, can everyone remember your assignment was about speed zones? I've done that on purpose. So you might go, oh my God, I wrote that in my assignment, or I remember doing this in my assignment. I do things for a reason.
So do you memorise that?
You can memorize your assignment. You can also condense your assignment, so there might be things that you remember from writing your assignment that will help you, okay? The next one is a very vague word, force, but you need to know force in moving about. So, in third topic. So force of moving vehicles. You might need to work out force using impulse. You might need to work out work. So I want to write there in third topic, and it's also an equation, okay? All right. Models of the universe. I'm going to give you a generalization. You need to know who was a helio or geocentric scientist or philosopher at that time. So you need to know who said helio, which was Earth-centered, or geo, which is sun-centered. Okay, you need to know the difference between the two. Can I mention that you will, after the exam, go, oh my God, I studied all 9 scientists. Okay, right? Brahe, Copernicus, Aristotle, and that. Can I just say, focus on the main ones. Okay, focus on only the ones that are in the workbooks. So you know the ones that you got given. Okay. If there are people like Aristotle, Copernicus, Kepler that regularly get mentioned, then just study them. If it's someone like we rarely mention Newton in models of the universe, then don't study Newton. Okay. Other ones could be like I'm trying to think of. I think it's Irenaeus, which is after Aristotle. Have I mentioned him in class? Very rarely. I don't think I have. So don't even worry about those ones. Worry about the main core ones. So let's go through them. Let's write Aristotle, Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler,
What was the third one?
so there was Aristotle, Kepler, Galileo, and Copernicus. They're the main ones that I can think of off the top of my head. They're on my board over there as well. So they're the main ones that you should be learning.
Einstein.
No, not Einstein, because we're looking at models of the universe. So go back to geo and heliocentric models, and then once you find out who said helio and who says geo, they're the names you should be studying. Einstein, Hubble, they should not be mentioned. Okay, in that part of that time period. Okay, you're looking at scientists that are above 400 years old. Okay, at least. Next, Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. You need to study the actual diagram, so you need to know its colors, so where the colors are located. You need to know every single axis, so you need to know which one's on the X and which one's on the Y. Can I tell you, there is, if you look at a proper Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, there is about 4 to 5 parts of the axis. So there's spectral class, there's temperature, there's brightness or luminosity. There's like 4 to 5 different axes. Absolute magnitude, yeah. So there's 4 to 5. Can I just mention, there is 4 to 5 in the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. You need to know color. You also need to know the different parts. So you need to know where the main sequence is and so on. Alright? Now, remember this. 30% of your exam is third and fourth topic. So if I've only got models of the universe and Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, 30% of your space marks will come from that. So think about Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, right? Hertzsprung-Russell diagram would be at least 4 to 5 marks. Models of the universe will be at least 4 to 5 marks. Okay, so think about, I've narrowed it down to that. There's one other thing that you need to know for the fourth topic. You need to know nuclear radiation and reaction. So that gets mentioned in Cosmic Engine as well. So that gets mentioned in your short answer for Cosmic Engine. Okay, so that's your fourth topic. Alright, so there will be maybe, like I mentioned, a diagram that will have beta, alpha, gamma, and it wants you to tell me which one's which. Okay, it might be telling you which one gets stopped and which one has the most ionizing radiation, which one has the most penetration. Okay, alright? There's no formula. Okay, no formula, nothing that you need to deduce from a formula.
Properties of alpha, beta, and gamma.
Yep.
Low X magnitude. Oh, yeah.
Red shift and blue shift and that.
Snell's law. What? Oh, that.
I can't think that there isn't any mathematical equation. Oh, sorry, the Lux law. No, you don't need to know that. You don't need to know that. So you don't need to know Lux's law or brightness of a star or anything like that. No. can I mention that if you want to write this down, this is probably key. There is more mathematics from moving about than any other topic that you've learnt this year. Alright, does that make sense? So for Cosmic Engine, there is very little, like I mean probably nothing on mathematics. No. But for moving about, it's heavily on mathematics. So this is what I'll do if I was you for study. I would look at this dot points, and tonight I'll start making like maybe A4 pages of, I've got maybe 30 dot points here, A4 page for each dot point, and I'd write like a study card on it. Alright? Some of the cards will be very short, some of them will be very long. But A4 page, everyone's got access to an A4 page, and you just write down everything you can to answer what I've given you from the information today. So for example, for Volta and Galvani, your study card would just be Volta said this, Galvani said this, and that's it. Okay? But for, let's say, for speed zones, your essay, you might want to write 8 different dot points that you brought up in your assignment. Do you get me? So go through each dot point using the targeted revision I've given you, okay?
Matter way, probably.